Hey, back again for another one of my little talk rant things. As you can see, I'm wearing the old Nationals cap. That's because we're back on baseball again today. I know there's been some time between this and my last post, but as you can see, we're now filming in Field House, and so that's an exciting time for all to be had at the beginning of this new year. So, I was actually, because it is the beginning of a new year, I want to talk about something that would be pertinent to this year, 2014, and that's Baseball Hall of Fame inductees. Well, this year we have three managers that are going to be getting in the Hall of Fame. Already had the votes in and counted for them. It's going to be Joe Torre, Bobby Cox, and Tony La Russa. So I wanted to discuss these three men who really are giants in the managing field. One of them I really like. I like Bobby Cox's style. I don't necessarily like as much the management style of La Russa or Torre, but I mean, you can't argue with their numbers. They're great. But I wanted to dive into just some thoughts that I had concerning some issues which are going to light up the comment section on this, I'm sure, with all sorts of speculation. I've already talked a little bit about this with one of my sisters, and she was rendered to stunned silence by my comments, so I don't know. But let's start off. So I'm going to start with, as I said, the one that I like the best, which is going to be Bobby Cox. I gesture at the screen because I have his stats up, but you obviously can't see them. But anyway, I mean, the guy won. I mean, there's really not a whole lot to say. Ton of games. I guess the one thing you could be critical of is the fact that he won the division so many times, but rarely did they actually go deep into the postseason. Not rarely, but on only a couple of occasions did they go deep, and they did not win many World Series. And, you know, that is on one level a concern I think you can voice. But again, I mean, when you're looking at a 556 winning percentage and over 2,500 wins, you can only say so much about certain things. I mean, there's lots of people who don't perform at their best in the postseason who deserve to be in the Hall of Fame and who are in the Hall of Fame. So I don't think you can really hold that against him. Also, in addition, I didn't necessarily know this, but before he was the manager of the Braves, he was in fact the general manager. So he actually really built those teams that he went on to win with. So not only do you have the front office, but you also have the back office with him. And like I said, I didn't actually realize that. And I'm sure Drew could have told me, but he didn't. And I found that to be quite interesting and fascinating. Then I'm going to go ahead and move from him into Joe Torre. Now, Torre is an interesting character. As I said, I am not actually a fan of how the Yankees did things under him. But on another level, I can appreciate what he was trying to do. He wanted the game to be played a certain way. You knew that when you were going into it. If you were going to play for the Yankees, you were playing Joe Torre's baseball. And I don't necessarily have a problem with that if you're upfront about it. If, you know, and you bring that level of class to your organization and to your team, and actually to the sport as a whole. I'm not a Yankees fan, but, you know, I can see where Yankee fans come from, and, you know, I can appreciate what's going on there. Then, of course, you know, again, you're looking at stats, and you see impressive winning percentages and, you know, win total wins. And of course, one can't uh, be critical of the teams that he put together and won with at all. The one criticism I guess you could have is, hell, I could have won with some of those teams that he put together. So it's almost like he had an easy go of it, you could say, on one level. But again, you know, you don't get that far and that successful without being able to manage, when you think about, too, some of the personalities and egos that he had to put up with because of Steinbrenner and even Steinbrenner himself. So I think it shows a level of some of what he had to go through and work with. So I think he deserves to be in there. Now we're going to come to the manager who, like I said, is going to cause controversy for this. And let me start out by saying Tony La Russa deserves to be in the Hall of Fame when you look at his stats. The man won tons of games, multiple leagues, multiple settings, multiple eras that he had to play in, and that he had to push through. And you can say, you can definitely say something for that. I mean, uh, World Series titles. The man has more World Series rings than, you know, I probably have any one thing of. So you can't really debate that. Now, here's what I'm going to throw down, and I'm not the first person who said this, I'm sure, and I'm probably not going to be the last. But for him he got into the Hall of Fame, got in on 100% vote count, and again, you look at his numbers, you understand why. But I kind of feel like there should almost be a policy. If you manage players who are not getting into the Hall of Fame because of their steroid use, you as their manager should not get in the Hall of Fame either. Now, immediately this is going to take people back because everybody says it instantly, particularly with these three guys. Torrey obviously had people who used steroids on his team. Yes, but there's a difference between having a couple guys who use steroids and having a couple teams that use steroids. I think the numbers there definitely indicate something different going on. Also, one of those guys was Clemens, and frankly, if Clemens is working out, I'm not going to go in that room. The guy scares me. The guy still scares me. So anyway, I think that is a real thing that we have to address. The fact that he has 100% of the vote, he's getting in the Hall of Fame. You can't tell me he didn't know players were using steroids. Now, when I was talking about this, again, as I mentioned with one of my sisters earlier, the first thing she says is, well, it wasn't illegal when all those eighth players were. Okay, great. So are you saying Rafael Palmeiro should be in the Hall of Fame? 3,000 hits, 500 home runs. The guy's good. Are you saying Bonds shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame? There's no proof that Bonds took steroids after it was illegal. You could say, oh, he did. Well, I mean, at the same time, you could say maybe the reason knew his players were doing it. I just think you're starting to walk a really fuzzy line when you hit that. If you are going to keep those players out of the Hall of Fame, I'm not saying they should or shouldn't be out of the Hall of Fame. Actually, I kind of bleed towards take McGwire. He'll be a great example. I kind of think McGwire should be in the Hall of Fame. I know he used steroids. It was illegal. They told him it was illegal. He stopped doing it, and he sucked and he quit. Or maybe he did it a little while after. I don't know. We can nitpick on moments. But it was an era when people used steroids. And by that token, I really, on that level, don't have a problem with Tony La Russa being in the Hall of Fame. His players used steroids. Wasn't against the rules right then. But you can't set up some kind of dual standard where it's like, Bond shouldn't get in the Hall of Fame. He used steroids. McGwire shouldn't get in the Hall of Fame. He used steroids. Palmeiro, Canseco, etc., to tick off down the list. Shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. Shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. Use steroids, use steroids, use steroids, use steroids. But this guy who knew they were doing it, who managed their teams, yeah, he's cool, though, because he's a Cardinal. There, I said it. That's going to light up the feed, too. But, that's part of the reason why I think some of these people don't have problems is because La Russa won them World Series, so we're kind of cool with him. The same way we were cool with McGwire when we all knew he was taking roids and hit 70 home runs just because we wanted to see it happen. So we glossed over it. I think we're doing the same thing with La Russa right now. And the thing that kind of bugs me about it, again, to light up my newsfeed, you have my personal hero, Jeff Bagwell, who's not in the Hall of Fame, despite the fact that he's a 300 lifetime hitter with 450 home runs and over 2,300 hits, because he might have possibly unsubstantially used performance-enhancing drugs back in the day. Again, never proven. But La Russa can get in on 100% vote. You see where that might actually strike me as a really bad chord, deep in my soul. Because I think, look, when we're talking about players who played in the steroid era, the dirty era, this is something that we're going to have to acknowledge as baseball. So it's something we're going to have to talk about. What is the legacy of these players? And that includes the managers. And you can't willy-nilly apply some kind of rule system, arbitrary decisions based on who you like and who you don't like and what team they played for and what team they didn't play for and whether or not they won you World Series. That's shouldn't be your deciding factor. And frankly, La Russa falls for me exactly in the same place as all those other players I mentioned. Do you let in Bonds? Do you let in McGwire? Do you let in La Russa? Do you not let them in? But you can't pick and choose which one you like, because I don't see that as that's just going to prolong this whole thing of, well, because then you have a guy like Rodriguez who believes his own image and, believes that he's so popular, and yeah, so maybe he can slide with it because La Russa's sliding with it. So I think my general conception, the rule that I would put in place, if we're going to say performance enhancing users can't get in the Hall of Fame, I'd make a pretty hardcore line that says, look, if you're the manager and you have 2, 3 players, 4 players, 5 players under your career who are not who use steroids, that's going to happen, but who are not getting in the Hall of Fame because they were steroid users, then you shouldn't get in the Hall of Fame because you managed them and you were responsible for that during that time period. And I don't care if you know or you don't know. You know what? I managed a restaurant, and if $300 went missing from that store's deposit, didn't matter if I wasn't in work that day. This is coming back to me because I'm the guy who's in charge. I'm the manager of that store. You're the manager of that team. You need to know that kind of stuff. And particularly when you're a guy like La Russa, who it's not like baseball is the only thing you do. The guy's freaking got a JD. He's a brilliant guy. And he didn't know his players' workout routines. He didn't notice that Jose Canseco put on 130 pounds in the first couple of years that he was in the major leagues. I mean, that strikes me as laughably unbelievable. But anyway, so that is ultimately the quick and dirty of what I'm saying. I do think all these guys have the stats to get in the Hall of Fame. I think as it sits now, La Russa shouldn't. I think if we changed how we were approaching certain things, La Russa should. But as it sits now, no, I don't think that man deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't think he should be in the Hall of Fame. Unless we're going to just totally readjust how we approach the steroid era. Do we approach it as, look, this happened. Some of these guys were good. Bonds was great. McGwire was good after a fashion, Palmeiro, like I said, again, after a fashion, good hitter. Unless we're going to say, this was just an era where it happened. Hey, there were pitchers who threw spitballs back in the day. It wasn't illegal. They're in the Hall of Fame. There's players who take performance-enhancing drugs. We don't like to necessarily acknowledge it, but it happened, and there you go. And hey, if you're good, you're in the Hall of Fame. Your numbers, if you want to put a little asterisk by their plaque or whatever. But anyway, those are my thoughts on the issue. I'm going to love to see some of the comments that come up on it because I am sure there will be many. And I will try to get another one of these up before too terribly long, and we will see you guys at that time.